So we've talked about Summer Castoria and how she's just overall a very strong arts DPS. Then we talked about Chloe, who is actually the standout unit on the banner for her ability to help out certain farming team comps and allowing all sorts of nonsense like Arash being able to 3-turn farm. And then we have Suzuka, who I know a lot of people are very excited for, but unfortunately, the more and more that I use her, the more that I find that she's very painfully average. Now, that doesn't mean that she's a bad servant by any stretch of the imagination, but if you do want to use her, you're going to have to put in a little bit of elbow grease. Now, I don't have my own ruler Scotty, so in a lot of the gameplay, you'll see me using Castoria with her Bond CE to give her a little bit of extra NP gain and to kind of give her that last little bit of that 50% battery, but never have I felt the pain of using Quick more than while I was doing this, because her being in the Rider class might just be so you use her against casters, the class that gives you the most NP gain back, to make her at least look pretty decent. When I took her type neutral or against berserkers, the results were not very good. Although this might also stem from more of the issue of Quick as a whole and less so it being Suzuka's problem. But before we dive into all of her details and we talk about what she can actually do, make sure you hit that like button, you hit that subscribe button for that daily FGO content, and if you want to see me play FGO live every single weekday, I do that every day at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time over my Twitch, which is linked down in the description down below. But on that note, let's go ahead and start talking about Suzuka, starting off with her hits, of which the title of painfully average may be very apparent in just all of the hits and everything that she's got. She's got 0.55% NP gain, which is not super bad, but it's not very good either. She's got 5 hits on her AoE NP, which is pretty solid, but Quick servants generally want a little bit more than that because they really need to start getting that overkill so they can refund more of their NP. Now, the 4 hits on the arts cards are pretty good, as you'll kind of see in some situations where I get to use her face cards. She can refund a decent bit of her NP, even getting up to 200% at some point. But as an AoE servant, you're probably wanting to use her as a farming servant, so you might not actually get to see those pretty nice arts cards and those nice crit refunds that she's able to do very often, unless you do want to take advantage of some of the stuff that she's got going on her NP, which does make her actually pretty decent in more difficult content. We'll get to that later. The quick cards are pretty nice at 4 hits a pop. 9.1% star gen. I mean, you really don't have to have that crazy of star gen nowadays after the quick chain buff where they drop 20 stars instead of 10 stars, so she'll be able to bomb a really good amount of stars just fine. And even if she can't, you still have Ruler Scotty that provides stars every single turn, but I never really found myself wanting for extra stars. All of her passives are pretty just decent, like they're just okay, nothing super crazy. You know, a 10% quick buff, a 6% arts buff, a little bit of a divinity like raw damage buff, and a little bit of debuff resistance from magic resistance D. They're all like kind of nice, but nothing super insane, but they do kind of pad out the rest of her kit. But let's start moving into some of her skills, because her skills might actually deceive a lot of people into thinking that she's better than she actually is. Again, I don't think she's bad. I do just think she's very average, right? I do think that title of calling things average or mid is very overinflated nowadays. If you say something's mid, people assume it's bad, but no, it's just like average. It's just okay. It's not good. It's not bad. But starting off with her first skill, it's a pretty decent charisma. You're getting 20% attack for the entire party for 3 turns. And then if you are a summer servant, meaning you're just one of these summer servants that's on banner, or you have a costume, you're also going to get 20% NP damage for 3 turns, as well as her bombing 15 stars, which I kind of wish that 15 stars was like maybe 5 to 10% NP every single turn, because that's about the amount of NP that I found myself wanting for, and quick servants don't really have an issue with generating stars, especially on JP. But I do like the little bit of synergy this does have with Ruler Scotty, because Ruler Scotty does at least have an offensive NP. You're probably not dedicating all of your resources into making her the DPS, but with this, you know, you double buff her a little bit. She can drain charge on her AoE NP to kind of support the party, and alongside this, she can do a little bit of damage, so it's not all that bad, but you know, for her, it's just double buffing herself. And the 20% is fine enough already. If you can find a way to stuff Oberon into your team comp with, I don't know, throwing Summer Chloe in there, ironically enough, to help her out, getting the extra NP damage will also be very good, because Oberon's third skill just absolutely loves it when you have any type of NP damage already caked into your kit. So if you can find a way to make that work, you'll definitely benefit a lot from it. But I don't have Oberon, so I couldn't even test that out. Her second skill is also kind of nice. If you want to bring her to more difficult content, you'll see more of this value. Now, the 20% quick buff might look really bad initially, but do also remember that she does have a passive 10%, so really you're actually looking at 30%, so it's not quite that bad. Again, it's more on par with what most servants will actually just have. She gets a 20% crit damage buff for 3 turns, and then every time she performs a crit, she increases her attack by 10% for 3 turns, and that does proc first, so you do immediately get the damage as soon as you do that crit. I say you'll see the value of this in more difficult content because you're probably not going to be doing like random crits in front of your NP to give yourself extra attack, but then again, you might want to do that if you're using a more lower NP Suzuka and you need the extra damage. I was lucky enough to walk away with NP3, so I didn't really find myself in too many situations where I needed the extra damage. But it would be really nice to have in, say, longer content where maybe you're going to be there for a bit longer. Or if you're using, like, say, Double Scotty to do a lot of really big quick crits, you can then start raising your attack more and more to try to really solidify that 3-turn clear, because that's kind of the name of the game with, you know, using quick setups for, you know, boss killing. You want to try to kill the boss as soon as possible, because as soon as Scotty's buffs wear off, she's not like Merlin or Castoria where their NP is immensely useful. She's kind of standing around like a wet paper towel, and this can kind of help you out in securing those 3-turn clears, because you'll get stronger as the fight goes on, and it'll really help you just ensure those more narrow kills. Finally, there's her third skill, which this was the one that actually kind of tricked me a little bit into thinking she was going to be a lot better than she was, because I was like, oh, they recognize the problem. They understand that quick servants need a good quick buff, they need NP gain, and they also need a battery, because they need that more than, say, the art servants, because, you know, someone like Berserker Musashi, she's an art servant with decent NP gain, and then she can further raise her NP gain, so she can just raw get herself 100% battery back, right? She doesn't necessarily need the battery unless you're doing some really weird nodes, but that's when you bring in like Space Ishtar or Ibuki or someone along those lines. But unfortunately for Suzuka, these kind of just bring her up to par by giving her that 30% NP gain, a 30% battery, and also giving her a little bit of a skill cooldown reduction, which is nice, I suppose. It does allow her to get to her other buffs faster again. I think that's kind of good if you're going to use her in more long-form content, but realistically for farming, I don't think it's going to come up all that much because you'll just give it to yourself. And as of right now, when I'm recording this video, there's not really a quick support that just lowers your skill cooldown reduction, like say Double Kolyenskaya does for Buster, where they can start looping their skills. If we do get someone like that, someone like Suzuka will actually be a lot better, because then she can get like 60% NP gain. She'll have like a total like 30% battery. Things will just get a lot better for her. But overall, her kit is very, very solid. Like, it's solid, it's good. Not the most crazy thing I've ever seen, but it does allow her to function as a farmer. If you want to use her, she will do fairly well. And again, because she's a rider, you're primarily going to be using her against casters, so she should be fine, as casters give you the most NP gain refund, as maybe if you're like a newer player and you don't know, different classes give you different levels of NP gain back. Like, so that's why Berserkers may seem the hardest ones to farm, because they give you so little NP gain back, whereas casters give you the most, so it feels really easy to farm casters. And so that natural type advantage kind of swaying people to use her against casters will probably make her look a little bit better in the long run. I have to imagine that's why they made her a rider instead of making her a saber or something. But she does still have her NP, and I did talk about this earlier. It's not a bad NP. If you want to bring her to some boss fights, if you can get her at higher NP levels, this ain't bad. The fact that she's got Pierce Invul caked into the NP, she has a anti-lawful damage mod that's only 30%, but keep in mind, if you get the damage mod, she's already giving herself all 4 buff types and they all multiply into each other, so it will help her damage out a lot. But even if you can't find lawful guys to fight, she also has a real 150% damage mod against Earth attribute enemies, and these are both pretty decent damage mods for her to have. Keep in mind, Earth is the same one that Ereshkigal just got on NA, and if you've been using her, which I know a lot of you guys like Ereshkigal, so I'm assuming it's a good point of reference, those are like all the enemies you can still bring her against. Although this is definitely going to be one of those servants that you want to get at higher copies of, but thankfully for New Year's, Lasengel did actually improve the 4-star rate buff, so like even during my summoning video, I didn't get Castoria. Spoiler alert if you're going to watch that, you can see my pain and suffering still, but I did walk out with 3 Chloes and 3 Suzukas, so I didn't completely lose out. And I think that's why I still have a pretty good impression on Suzuka. Like, I would rate her around like a 5, 6 out of 10. Just a pretty decent servant that's in the pool now. If you're going for Castoria, you can basically walk out with what's the equivalent of like Quick Mordred. Obviously, I mean like the Summer Rider version, where she can loop decently well against her enemies, but you're probably going to want higher NP copies to really secure those kills and really get that overcharge. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Am I being a little too harsh on Suzuka? Look, I know she's hot. That's half the reason I was confident in going for Banner 1. Not only was there a Saber face on there, but Suzuka finally got dropped. Not as her Santa version, but technically as the Summer version, which is arguably better. But let me know all those thoughts in the comments down below, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace late, guys.